A photograph is an imitation of life. I'm going to tell you all how this verse connects with my food choices. I'm very experimental when it comes to my food. You know, this whole chocolate or vanilla debate, I don't really get it because I like chocolate and vanilla, and I like to mix the two as well. So I learned the hard way how a photograph can be an imitation of life through my food choices. So when I was in Mumbai, I used to work as an assistant to a product photographer called Ian Carrera. This is Ian. So we shot a lot of food. You know, one week we did about 10-15 cakes. It was for a bakery. At the end of the day, the assistants get to eat the cakes, and then it's a massive feast. On this particular day, however, we were shooting for a glassware company called Borosil, and they had just introduced a range of glassware to be used in microwaves. So basically, you can bake this cake in a microwave. At the end of the shoot, I was really, really excited because my whole vanilla chocolate debate, you know, it was solved on its own. There was a layer of chocolate, there was a layer of vanilla, there was whipped cream, and there was a cherry on the top. I was super excited. So we spend about 8 to 12 hours at a shoot. We start really early in the morning, we go on till night, and then we're really tired and we're hungry. So the food was out there. There were savories, you know. They'd also shot some other Indian sweets, but my eye was for the cake. Why? Because it had vanilla, it had chocolate, it had whipped cream, and a cherry on the top. I cut out a piece. There's only a bit of whipped cream, but I took most of it because I was really excited about it. And I took a massive bite. I, you know, swallowed 1 second, 2 seconds, and I realized something had gone terribly wrong. It wasn't, I'm experimental with my food, but this was not the kind of combination I could recommend or swallow. As I was running to look for a tissue to politely retch into, I passed the can of shaving cream that was on the kitchen table. See, we hired this lady called Aarti as she's a food stylist, right? So she's also a chef, but she works part-time at our studio to make food look good. That's her entire job. So she kind of found it more convenient to use shaving cream to, you know, make than whipping the cream herself. So it's not pleasant, you know, the taste of shaving cream in your mouth with chocolate and vanilla cake and a bit of cherry. So yeah, so this was something we shot earlier in the same day. That's when I remembered that I also saw a bottle of red paint next to the ketchup because she'd mixed the two when she was making the sauce for the pizza shot. So a lot of the food shots that you do see out there, you know, when you look at advertisements for restaurants, when you look at, you know, advertisements for glassware, for instance, it's not edible, it's not real, and yeah, so this is my, that's how I learned a photograph is an imitation of life. So how did I get into photography? I used to go to parties and get really bored because the music was too loud and I couldn't hear. I like conversation and I really couldn't make conversation and I couldn't hear much. So I liked having something to do. So I would take my camera along and take pictures. So I love photography. Why? I used to paint as a child, and for me, photography is an extension of painting. You know, you can recreate something. It's not just about capturing that landscape. You know, you can create something. You can, and I've been painting for pretty much most of my life until I turned 16, and my father gifted me a camera. So I was very excited because I'm fidgety. So if I don't have something to do, you know, I get restless, and the camera gave me something to do, and that continued. And today, I'm a jewelry photographer. I shoot fashion. Well, that's what happens before a shoot, really. That's Rani Mukherjee there, and I don't think she'll be too happy with this picture. But yeah, this is what happens behind the scenes at a photo shoot. So everything's pretty shiny. This is what happens behind the scenes. Another reason why I love photography. See, while I was in Mumbai, I actually studied journalism. So I spent the first few years covering events for a children's newspaper in Mumbai. So the thing about photography, like you would have seen in Shamal's presentation, it took you there. I mean, we couldn't go to the Antarctic, but Shamal's photographs took us to the Antarctic. And this is the Ganpati festival in Mumbai. And here I am taking you to the festival where they immerse the god Ganesh into the seas. So this is in Leh Ladakh. It is between, Ladakh is beyond Kashmir. It's a really, really beautiful place. It's got snow and these are wild horses. So again, I'm taking you to Ladakh, you know, I'm taking you beyond Kashmir. And that's something a photograph can do. And that's why I love photography. It can take you places. This is in Rajasthan. And this is a little bit about how people there, I mean, there is a famous Fevicol ad. I don't know if you've ever seen it. But it shows how people, especially in Rajasthan, these are very rural areas. There aren't many vehicles, and this is literally how people travel, and this is absolutely normal for them, you know. There are children there are babies, and their mothers, and they're all squeezed, and this is ordinary life for them. And you can see this because you saw a photograph, even if you haven't been to Rajasthan. Food. Again, this is real food, so it's not really set up for a commercial shoot. This is called malpua. It's a sweet that's, it's basically like a pancake fried in ghee and then dipped into a sugar syrup. And then they usually put condensed milk on top as well before they serve it. It's very sweet, it's very lovely. You don't get it in Sri Lanka, but you can see it here. All right, so I also enjoyed going to a lot of political rallies when I was in Mumbai. You can demonstrate there without getting shot, and photographers can shoot there also without getting shot or kidnapped or being accused of a lot of things. So I had a lot of freedom shooting there, and this was a rally after the Mumbai attacks, when Mumbai got attacked by terrorists in 26 November 2009. So a lot of the people went out on the streets. These are young people, you know, young people who are into governance. And what I've found there is that they are very proactive in how their government works. And this was like no vote, no taxes, you know. So a photograph can actually influence opinion. You know, you see this picture and you think, hey, you know what? You weren't at the rally. Maybe you were on Facebook and jabbering away. But, you know, there are other young people out there also, you know, and maybe it will inspire you. So photographs do inspire. Again, what happens at rallies? Lots of cameras, so things get recorded. This happened recently. I went to cover it as well. Again, it brings you things that happened that you weren't around, but yeah. So that's a great thing about photojournalism. That's also the great thing about commercial photography. You create beautiful images, and I love it both. I love creating things. I love the post-production as well. I'm not saying Photoshop is evil. I love doing it. It's part of, you know, you have this canvas, which is the photograph, then you post-process it, you send it out, and it's beautiful. And with photojournalism, with travel photography, photography really, really takes you places. Images take you places. I think half our presentations today were, you know, accomplished because we had images, you know, in our presentations. And we don't really realize this, but we're surrounded by photographs, right? It's, there's this line by Susan Sontag. She's a writer and critic. And she says in her essay, she wrote a list of essays on photography, which were published in 1977. So this is before the digital age, this is before social media. And she says, you know, everything exists to end up in a photograph. So, and that's the world we live in today. It's saturated with images, right? And that's kind of also what I hate about photography, the kind of images that the world, you know, is saturated with. And what my presentation is about today is deconstructing the photograph, right? So a photograph is an imitation of life, and we in turn as consumers try to emulate this imitation. This is unrealistic. So for instance, when you've done a glamour shoot, right? You have photoshopped the skin so it looks perfect. You know, you've done up their hair, there are no wrinkles, everything is just perfect. And then you have consumers trying to imitate this imitation. And that is unrealistic. And then we stress out about it because we can't have perfect skin. We can't have perfect hair. And that's something, because we are also refusing to deconstruct that photograph, you know. So so the problem with today's world is we take it in blindly. We stop looking with our naked eye. I mean, we can just look at people around us. That will tell us what human beings are supposed to look like. But we rely on our perception of the world on a photograph entirely. So now it's not enough just to go on holiday, you know, or it's important that we record every single moment of that holiday versus experiencing the holiday, right? So again, I'm quoting Susan Sontag, but she mentions how we live in an industrial society, right? So it's all about productivity, right? So you have a schedule, a sightseeing schedule. And so day one you do this, day two you do that, you know, you see the sea on this day, then you climb the mountain. And it's not about experiencing or enjoying or absorbing the place. It's more about, okay, I took the photograph, I did it, I'm done. All right, next. So, and then you go back home and you relive your holiday through your photographs. So you didn't live it, you spent all that money, you went there, you didn't live it then, you end up reliving it as you go home, after you go home. Again, something I hate about photography. If you didn't have or own a camera, you'd probably spend more time enjoying the holiday. Think about it. All right, so one, yes, I hate how we try to emulate something that is unrealistic. Two, I hate how it's kind of made us all, you know, slaves to productivity and taking a picture to prove we've experienced something. So freezing a moment means we have to make sure the moment that is frozen is perfect, and that can be stressful. So now you're watching me speak, right? So you've seen me turn a lot of angles. You may have seen me at my not so flattering angles, you might see me at my okay angles, but you see me as a whole and you heard me speak. But if you had to see a picture that's just frozen, it kind of limits your understanding of who I am. You know, it limits your understanding of what I stand for, what I would like to say, because then you're defining me based on that one photograph. Now there is a photo, I mean, you could shoot that photo in a way that captures your whole being, but not everyone can do that. And when you have a photograph that is unflattering or that is not you, you get embarrassed, you know, so it's stressful, you know, and you're living in a world today where everyone's taking a picture. So I see people being slightly conscious when, you know, okay, we have to look good in every second, you know, we have to look good. So we stop sort of being ourselves. And that again is something I've, you know, discovered about photography, because I live behind the lens for most of my work life. And I see things with my naked eye. I don't see the I mean, I see the final image, but I also know what the image was before, you know, and what goes into it. So, but most people who are consumers, or you know, the person who is not a photographer is not going to be able to deconstruct this. Their entire perception of their reality depends on photography and images. So, so for instance, I get up in the morning, I put on Facebook, or I go check out blogs and Twitter and that people have seen. I don't leave my house, but I learn a lot of things, yes. I've seen a lot of things, yes. But how much of it, I mean, unless you've been there and experienced it, a photograph cannot really and absolutely capture it. Am I correct with Antarctica, right? I mean, we didn't feel the cold. It was minus 40 degrees, I think, you know. We didn't feel the cold, we didn't know what it was like to plunge into the ocean. The photograph did tell us, but it's only probably 10 to 20% of what really happens out there. And we need to remember that. And sometimes when you see a picture, you kind of get comfortable because, oh, I saw it happen. I don't really have to go there and investigate, look beyond it, because I saw it happen. And also because you see the picture, I know pictures can be more powerful than words. And words can actually be far more powerful than pictures if they are read. But we live in a world we're so used to images, it's easier to absorb an image and not absorb the text. So you lose context. So a photograph without context is very, very dangerous. We can topple a government with a photograph without context. You know, all you have to do is shift an angle and you can collapse a nation, because people are going to follow that photograph and they're not going to know the context around it. And no one's going to bother taking 360 degrees. You know, you're going to take that image because you might have a personal agenda about it. So again, we're living in a world that people are not deconstructing photographs and we're depending on photographs. And we don't realize this, but we are so, I mean, very, very much dependent on the images around us to tell us how we look. For instance, okay, I look at the mirror, I look fine, but no, I need to make sure I look photogenic. Oh no, that is the only way I'm convinced that I look fine. If my photograph tells me I'm fine, you know? So that is again something we need to get out of, because we've stopped looking at people through our naked eyes. You know, everyone looks fine, everyone looks good. But unless you're photogenic, because we're spending so much time in front of screens, so we're judging people based on what they look on those screens. I've always been fascinated by how images and people interact, and not just photographs. I'm talking about images, so it includes painting. So here, you never know. She's like you're staring at her in that painting. Photographs have more life than we know. Again, an impression. It's an imitation of life. Even when you sculpt. So remember, art is an imitation of life. It is not the real thing. Photographs inspire us, right? So the thing about inspiration is also, we look at a lot of photographs that inspire us, and we try really, really hard to be that person, to be that inspiring figure. But again, the photograph only captured them at their best moment. It doesn't, unless you read their biography, for instance, you don't get the complete picture. So we end up trying to emulate unrealistic standards because we're so dependent on images. And we need to have reality confirmed and experience enhanced by photographs is an aesthetic consumerism to which everyone is now addicted. This was written in the 70s by Susan Sontag, but I think it's far more relevant to today because we need to have that reality confirmed. It's not enough to have experienced something. We need to show that, we need to capture it in a photograph, or otherwise, it didn't happen. So, we live in a world surrounded by photography, right? What are we going to do about it? Now, what I've shown you what happens behind the shoot. I've told you, all right, we're judging ourselves based on our photographs. We're actually being very hard on ourselves based on our photographs. But photography has its good sides. It takes us around the world. It takes us to places and people we've never seen, experiences. So how do we decide? How do we actually, how can we tell what is real, what is not real? All right? I think we need to start reading. I think that's also important when it comes to photography. I know I'm a photographer and it's my profession. I love it. It's my bread and butter. But what I discovered is that people aren't reading enough. And we need to read context. And we live in when photography is not like your furniture. It's so potent. And we need to start looking beyond it. I enjoy commercial photography because I consider myself an artist first, right? But in today's world, because our entire perception is completely, dominated and controlled by the images we see, we need to do something about it. So next time you look at this, now you've seen this photo earlier, you saw it now, what do you see? You see whipped cream or shaving cream, right? And why do you see the shaving cream? It's because I told you there's shaving cream. You're not going to be able to see that. The photograph is not going to show you that. Unless you read, unless you listen, unless you see what's around the picture, unless you do a 360, So coming from a photographer who makes a living through photography, I think we need to start looking at the world, not at pictures, but at the world. We've stopped doing that. We need to walk on the streets. We need to talk to people. We don't have to look at this blog posts, and we don't have to look at articles that people are reading, or posted online. I know that, I love the internet. The internet is an amazing medium, but we need to put ourselves out there, and we're not doing that. We're getting complacent because the information comes to us. The photographs come to us. I think we need to go to the photograph, and that's what you need to do. All right? So I hope you liked the presentation, and I hope everyone just turn around, look at the people next to you right now. All right? They've got great skin, they've got great hair. They're ordinary people, they're beautiful people. And that's okay now. Stop taking your picture and looking at the picture. Look at them. All right? Thank you.